Hello and welcome to the OTB channel. Today I'm going to take a look at Garuda Linux, the Dragonized version. I did look at Garuda back in, I think it was October last year, and whilst I felt it was, it had some features that were to be recommended, overall I sort of felt it had been overdone. It certainly wouldn't have been for me, and I suppose I ended the review on oh well, it is what it is. But it's been getting an awful lot of attention recently. Development has obviously continued, so fair play. I thought, let's go and have a look at it again and see what's improved. See you after the intro. Okay, welcome back. So, I'm never one to kind of look at a distro and say, okay, I liked it, I loved it, I hated it, and just leave it at that. It's always great to see how distros evolve, and quite often I can start out not being particularly fond of a distro, but over time, as various tweaks and changes are actually made, I could change my mind completely. And I'll tell you now, I've taken a relook, if you like, at Garuda. I downloaded and installed the Dragonized version, and just wow. It is a beautiful looking Arch distro. And there have been some improvements compared to what I looked at before. I didn't feel as overwhelmed, I think is probably the right word. And I do think that the market for this distro has broadened. Initially, I thought it would just appeal to perhaps gamers or somebody who wanted everything but the kitchen sink installed and just wanted a GUI for absolutely every setting, and certainly it had all of that. But for me, it was just overdone. Not so much this time. In fact, the whole thing just felt like a different experience. So you've had the spoiler there. I feel like I need to say, just ignore my last review. I'm taking another look with new eyes now. I've watched a few reviews of this myself, from other YouTubers, and I've been thinking to myself, maybe it's time to go back. So let's go and have a look at the website, and then we'll fire Garuda up, and we'll see what it's done. So you should see the web page there now. We're on the combined screen. So garudalinux.org, and you can see the picture of the eagle there, the king of birds. I think Garuda has something to do with that. That's what it translates to. And you can see we've got KDE, GNOME, XFCE, Cinnamon, Mate, LXQT, Wayfire, Qtile, BSPWM, and i3WM options here. Wow. So that was pretty much always the case. And what does it advertise itself as? Easy installation. So it's got a Calamaris installer. The focus is really on the look and feel of this and easy GUI tools. It looked nice last time I installed it. I installed the Mate Ultimate Edition. And I thought it was okay. I did. I thought it looked nice. It just felt, I don't know, it just felt too much. I felt swamped. It does have ButterFS as the default file system. What I really like about that is that's sort of combined with snapshots. And every time you do an update, an upgrade, a snapshot's taken, and you can actually access the snapshot from your grub menu, which is really useful. So time shift out of the box, as it says. It uses PMAC as its software GUI. Yeah, I understand why people use that. I have qualms on all Arch systems about relying on it too much, but that's not Garuda specific. It uses a settings manager to change kernels, and it has an absolute ream of GUI tools for all sorts of administration purposes. Okay, all good. So let's just come back here and look at what its main features are. I covered these in detail last time, so I'm not going to go into massive detail, but it's an Arch system. It's a rolling release system. Garuda uses the standard Arch repos. It's set up for multi-lib, but it uses its own repo as well, Chaotic AUR, I think it's called. Just a single repo to provide its own custom packages. It's got their own kernel, Linux TKG, a faster, more responsive kernel, kind of optimized for desktop multimedia and gaming. Okay, how much difference those sort of things actually make in the real world, I've never been convinced of. Are we just talking a few seconds here and there? I don't know. But nevertheless, it seems to work well. It's free, it's easy to use, and here we go. These are some of the key things. Automatic CPU frequency scaling, ZRAM enabled by default. Now, this was the case when I looked at it before, and it was quite unusual for a distro out there to have ZRAM enabled by default. But it is becoming more popular, and it's a way of creating blocks of memory within RAM, or swap if you like. It's almost a way of enabling swap, but in your RAM. One of the downsides of it, if it is a downside, is it will tend to use more RAM than a standard system. But I believe the philosophy of Garuda is if you have RAM, you should use it, otherwise it's wasted, so hey-ho. So I think it's interesting that they've done that, and it's probably quite an efficient way of doing it. It's got out-of-memory prevention there to ensure that the system doesn't hang, and something called Ananice, which automatically sets nice levels on the system. Okay, so, you know, some features that set it apart from your standard Arch install. When it comes to downloads, I think that given how optimized and how many bits and pieces are added to the system, they've come up with sensible minimum requirements. This is not for lightweight use, really. So 4 gig ideally you're going to need for RAM, but it's going to run better with 8 gig or more. That's the bottom line. And that's what they recommend. So fair enough, you know. What else? They've got quite a few downloads here. The one I keep seeing is this Dragonized. Now, when I first installed, they had all the different desktops they did, and I seem to remember you had the option of downloading a light version or an ultimate version. This Dragonized edition didn't exist at the time, but this is the one I've been seeing all over Tinternet. And you can see that it looks pretty spectacular, just the icons. And you can download the standard Dragonized edition. Good to see they've got a torrent there. That's what I've used. It was only over 2 gig. The last time I downloaded Garuda, an Ultimate Edition, it was almost 5 gig. I think that put me off to start off with. Or you can download a gaming edition, which probably has lots of things like Steam, etc., all installed out of the box. I didn't need that, so I just downloaded the standard KDE Dragonized edition. You have some options here. You can download a specific multimedia edition or XFCE. By the way, I have looked at XFCE as well. I'm not going to show it on this review, but I was quite impressed. Still quite lightweight, but with many of the benefits and the GUI tools built into it that the Dragonized version has. And yeah, if you like XFCE, that's probably the one to go for. GNOME, we'll sweep past that one pretty quickly. LXQT, Cinnamon, Mate. So it was the Ultimate Edition that I downloaded last time. Yeah, so, enough said. Wayfire, Qtile. I don't remember Qtile being there before, but I might indeed quite like to have a look at that, what they've done with Qtile. I do enjoy using Qtile. BSPWM, i3WM, and something called RecBox, which is OpenBox, configured for audio recording and daily usage. Right, so let's just drag that out of the way. So, lots of options here. I went into the details of this last time I did the review, so this is just going to be a quick look. I'm going to be looking at what's changed as far as I'm concerned. You know, is the overall look and feel very different, or is it ultimately still the same, and is it quite sluggish? And having said that, I'm going to learn from my mistakes that I made last time. Last time I left desktop effects switched on, which is never great in VirtualBox, so this time I'm going to switch them off. So let's get stuck in. Let's go and have a look at Garuda. So you should now see in front of you the screen of Garuda Dragonized. And compared to the last time I looked at Garuda, which was the Mate Ultimate Edition, my first impression of this plasma desktop is that it actually looks much cleaner. We haven't got a big conky taking up a huge part of the screen with all sorts of information that I wouldn't necessarily want. I know some people love conky, but it's not actually for me. And the welcome screen looks cleaner. It used to have lots of tabs on here. And one of the tabs went to the configuration options, where it had lots of little icons of different sizes, and it looked a little bit like a phone screen, or phone icon, should I say. And my general feeling was it just looked, it looked messy. It looked like the developers had tried to do too much too quickly, and it looked very much like a distro that was in heavy development but wasn't quite what they wanted it to be as yet. Well, looking at this welcome screen, everything appears pretty consistent now. Just a couple of tabs, which is probably right. And I have to say, I love that icon set. Let's just open Dolphin and have a look what that's like. Whoa. I really like them. I knew what to expect because I've seen a couple of reviews of this edition, and I've been really impressed. Really, really like that look. It's very colourful. It's in your face. I get the feeling that it would be too much for me after a while, but certainly first impressions are, wow, colourful and beautiful. Somebody has spent a huge amount of time really getting this desktop to look the best that it can be. So let's just talk about my experience of installing this. So the installation is straightforward. It's a next process. It took quite a lot of time to do. I have to say, it wasn't that quick. It took about 15 minutes. Not a massive amount of time, but about 15 minutes. The size of the ISOs come down. I seem to remember the Ultimate Edition, which has now disappeared, was almost 5 gigs. This is just over 2 gigs. So it's much more manageable. And in fact, the applications that it comes installed with out of the box are a far more sensible selection. It creates a foundation for you and then lets you decide what you want to install from there. Whereas the previous Ultimate Edition I looked at had everything but the kitchen sink installed. And for me, it was too much. It took up a huge amount of disk space. And if I had installed it to my own machine, I would have spent time uninstalling an awful lot. So it installed without a problem. It went straight to full HD. I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to mess about with VirtualBox guest editions or anything like that. And when you reboot after installation, you get a setup assistant, or you get given the option, do you want to launch the setup assistant? And it asks you, do you want to do a system upgrade? Do you want to upgrade to the Ultimate Edition? Well, I wasn't aware there was an Ultimate Edition, but I said yes, just for the sake, let's see what it does. And it goes through questions like, what additional software do you want to install? Do you want printing support? Do you want scanner support? Everything, really. A load of questions, then it tries to action it. Unfortunately, it failed. The upgrade failed with an error. I wasn't that surprised, to be honest, because there was nearly 400 packages to be upgraded. So I simply opened a terminal and ran pacman -syu and upgraded through the terminal. Everything worked. For the sake of running this in VirtualBox, I've also disabled the compositing because it's very fancy out of the box. But when installing on VirtualBox, which, by the way, Garuda recommends you don't do, I was really struggling. I mean, I've got quite moderate hardware here, and although I've given this virtual machine 8 gigabytes of RAM, I know that when I've produced videos before with compositing switched on, it gets a little bit much. You get a flicker on the recording, so hopefully we shouldn't get that now. And in fact, everything seems to be running a lot smoother than it was with the effects turned off. So we've got the latte dock here at the bottom. I think that looks very nice. And we have our menu up on the top. Personally, and this is just a completely personal opinion, I prefer my main panel to be at the top. And if there's a menu, that's where I prefer it to be. You may decide that you want everything in a different order. Well, that's fine. You can move it around. But I quite like the default configuration. So what have we got out of the box? Well, as I said, it's quite a small, sensible set of applications compared to that Ultimate Edition. What I have done is I've installed an additional 2 packages, Chromium and VLC, just going through the add or remove software icon on Garuda, and they installed without a problem. It was a shame that the setup assistant couldn't do it, but I really don't blame it for that. This is an Arch-based system, and what you will find is that if you've got a set of packages that have been installed that are getting quite old, it gets quite difficult to upgrade a rolling release distro, which is why it's so important to do it at least once a week. On my Facebook group, one of the guys who's on there had problems with his PC, and he had Manjaro on there, and it was out of action for about 4 months, and he was asking questions, will it upgrade? Will it upgrade? Unfortunately, it didn't. And I'm not surprised at that. Arch is not difficult to maintain, but it is important to keep it updated. You don't have to do it every day. I would suggest once a week, and you should be absolutely fine. So let's just have a look at what's in here. There's a few development packages on graphics, GwenView, Ocular, and XDVI. So you've got no GIMP or anything out of the box. In Internet, I've installed Chromium, but you've got Firefox by default. You've also got KDE Connect and QBitTorrents. Okay. What else have we got? Multimedia. We've got MPV installed. The Video for Linux Test Utility and VLC. I've installed VLC myself. This does not come with LibreOffice installed. You can install it, that's not a problem, but it saves the space initially. So all you'd need to do is open up the Add Remove software icon and install it from there. So where else are we going? Settings. Right, so Firewall Configuration. Now, I haven't opened this yet, but I remember from the last time that I tried to do it on the Mate Ultimate Edition, it was firewalld. Have they kept firewalld here? Let's just have a look. No, we've gone for UFW. Right, it's not enabled by default, but that tends to be standard on distros now. So the very fact that we've got UFW, I think is a far more sensible option than firewalld. It's easier to get your head around, that's for sure. What have we got in settings? Add, remove software, firewall, notifier settings, Garuda settings manager. Garuda settings manager, let's just open that. Oh yes, I remember this from last time. So this allows you to mess about with your kernel. It almost looks like something you get from Manjaro. It's probably borrowed. The Kvantum theme manager, okay, great. And a link to system settings. On the system itself, right, so you've got Alacrity, the terminal installed by default. Good choice. It's a terminal that seems to be becoming more popular. I use it personally, love it. You've got to be quite careful with the configuration file. You've got to get all the spaces in exactly the right place, but it's fast and yeah, it does the job. Bleach bit for cleaning everything out. You've got Dolphin as a file manager. And a few other options there, which I think we can actually access from the welcome screen, so we'll have a look at them there. And then last but not least, we have utilities. So we have archiving tool, an emoji selector, firmware installation. We've got Kate there, which is the Plasma default text editor, calculator, the Latte dock. Okay, pretty much what you'd expect. I want to see what Emoji Selector is. Oh, right, okay. So for those of you who have seen me using my tiling window managers before, you'll know that I use a program called Rofi Emoji, and this looks to be essentially the same thing. So yeah, I think that's quite a sensible selection. I don't feel overloaded, which I must admit, I did feel a little bit like that when I looked at it last time. So let's have a look at the Garuda welcome screen. So you've got the Garuda Assistant. Let's see what that is. Okay, so you've got a few tabs here. So maintenance, you can refresh your mirror list. Oh yes, the Setup Assistant, by the way, does that anyway. It asks you if you want to do it. You can just click there to update your system. So let me log in as root and see what happens. It should be up to date. And clearly it was. I have to say, just looking at that, in fact, let me open the terminal. It is Alacrity by default. I think that font is a little on the small side for me. I would like to see it a little bit bigger by default. But Alacrity is easy enough to configure, and we have the fish shell. I remember one of my niggles last time when I looked at this was that it had a theme, a ZSH theme in the terminal, and it was showing my home IP. So not my internal IP, my external IP. And before I could actually do a video, I obviously had to configure it so that was not showing for obvious reasons. I'm glad to see that's not happening anymore. Remove database lock. Yeah, useful. Sometimes it happens and sometimes you do need to do that. Clear logs. Reinstall all packages. I would imagine that'll take a long time, but if you're having real problems, it might be an option. Remove orphans. Great. Edit repositories and clear package cache. So let's have a look at edit repositories here. And what have we got here? So we've got core, extra, community, multi-lib. So they're the standard packages you would expect. And then you have this single repo that Garuda supplies called chaotic AR. What are the options here? Okay, standard sort of options that chances are you're never going to need to go to. And a mirror list for this chaotic AUR. Okay, fine. So, yeah, sensible. And it does look consistent, this screen, which some of the tabs didn't on the welcome screen before. Let's go to system components. Right, really nice this. In a way, I think this was what the setup wizard that launched at the beginning was trying to do. It was trying to see if I wanted different audio support, whether I wanted, a different firewall, did I want Bluetooth support set up, etc., etc. And I see here, if you want firewalld, you can have that instead, and you can enable the UFW service here. So let's just enable it. It will remove Bluetooth support. That's unusual. Not quite sure why it's asking for that, but I'm not too worried about that. So if we go to Firewall now, let's see what's happened. I should be able to just click and enable this. And status is hopefully on. And it is. There you go. Okay, that's great. What else have we got here? Do I want printing and scanning support? So this is what it was asking me during the setup wizard. Do I want Samba support? Do I want the Virt Manager installed, VirtualBox installed? Do I want to place my user in the VBox users group? I quite like this. It's handy. And that all looks pretty consistent as well. Tick boxes look a lot better than icons that don't really give a consistent view. Then we have the BTRF, ButterFS, let's just call it ButterFS, options here, where we can enable FS trim and scrub. I seem to remember last time there was a defragment option here, which confused me a little bit, because you're used to seeing that on Windows. I wasn't, and I'm still not familiar with ButterFS. Nevertheless, I see that's disappeared, so all good. We can balance it, but that would take a very long time, so I'm not going to do that. And what do we have here? Last but not least, enable performance tweaks, guest user support, long press to right-click emulation. Okay, standard sort of stuff. So nothing there that's out of the ordinary. The settings manager will just be that Manjaro thing where you can pick your kernel, and there's the hardware configuration there. And what about Garuda Gamer? Whoa. So here we have a whole range of things that we can install. So Steam, Game Hub, Play on Linux, Wine Tricks. Well, you can see yourself, I'm not a gamer. Oh, there's even a link there to install OBS Studio, which is actually quite useful. What else is here? So they're the top three. Garuda Network Assistant, okay. You've got your boot options. Okay, that's fine. Set your delay, your theme, what you want to show. All pretty much standard. I would say, by the way, that automatically, when you do a system upgrade, it creates a snapshot for you, which you can access from the grub screen. And after I did my upgrade, indeed, the snapshot was there. So, all good. You've got links to Partition Manager, to Timeshift, to System Cleaner, which presumably is BleachBit. Yes, it is. So, all good. Quick access. What's quick access? Oh, I see. This is to install it. I'm just going to cancel that. Right, and add or remove software. Now, add or remove software will take us to Pamac. And indeed it has. Now, I would say that if you're going to use an Arch-based system, Pamac can be great for searching for packages and seeing how many updates you've got. I found it to be pretty inconsistent when you rely on it for doing system upgrades. So my advice would be don't use it for that. Okay, so and what are the links? Okay, so we have links to the website, the wiki, the FAQ. So let's go to the wiki. I presume that's going to open up Firefox. Oh no, it's going to open up Chromium now that I've installed it. And it looks to me like they have got more content here than they had the first time. I'm saying that from memory, though. There's a standard FAQ. Just taking a while to launch. Okay, so just very basic questions and answers. What I did have a quick look at, though, was a link to the forums. I would say it's probably worth joining the forums if you're going to install this, because as you'll see as we get here, we have a section on FAQ and tutorials, and there's an FAQ table of contents, which is really useful, and a Garuda Linux general FAQ, which takes us back to what we looked at before. But I'm looking here at the number of views of various posts, and it looks to be a fairly active forum, so all good. What else have we got here? So we've got links to GitLab, Element, Telegram, etc., etc., and the standard links that we saw last time. And that would seem to be about it. So, pretty good. Let's just see what right-clicking brings up. What strikes me is all the icons on every menu are all very coloured and colourful, and it's certainly striking. So, wallpaper. Let's just maximise this. So when I looked at the wallpaper on the last edition, it was quite minimal. I don't think that's a key thing. I mean, wallpaper's easy to install from anywhere. We do, however, have a few more options here. The setup assistant did ask me if I wanted to install more wallpaper, and I don't know whether it failed doing that as well. So this may not be the default. This may be after I said, yes, install more wallpaper. But ultimately, that was just a quick click. So you've got a few things there. So you want to do them or change your wallpaper. As normal, it's relatively easy. I like the open with dolphin links, create new icons. Okay. Refresh desktop, show K-runner, add widgets, add panel. In fact, let's open up the standard plasma settings, and I've never quite got my head around this because I'm not a plasma user, but you can see we can do just about anything here. There are so many settings, it is untrue. What about themes? Oh, let's have a look at icons. So we've got the icons that we've got installed at the moment are called Beauty Line. I don't know if they're from the Garuda repository or whether they're just generally available, but I'm certainly going to have a look-see. Global theme, sweetified plasma. Right, well, I like it. I really like it. Look, this is just a quick overview. I wanted to see whether my initial impressions of this would be better than the first time I looked at it. And What I can say is it's absolutely gorgeous. Now, this is the dragonized version. We've seen lots of other versions available on the website. Lighter weight versions, just using a window manager. So you do have options. But the fact that they've got rid of those ultimate editions right from the word go, I like. There seems to be more consistency in the look and feel of this. I like that as well. I suppose we have to check RAM usage. I don't know if HTOP is installed by default, but let's just have a look. Yes, it is. And what have we got here? 962 megs. Do you know, they do say on the website that we use a lot of RAM. If you have RAM, you should use it. That's the way it works. But actually, under a gig of RAM, for something like this, where we've been opening and closing applications constantly, I think is actually pretty good. But let's go and have a chat. Right, so, well, you've seen it, Garuda Linux Dragonized. What do I think of it? Do you know, maybe I was in a really grumpy mood last time, but the last time I looked at Garuda, I just came away feeling unimpressed. This time, I think there's been some real changes. I like the fact that it doesn't come as the ultimate edition. Maybe I should have tried the light version last time, but it seems to have a sensible selection of initial packages. I like the fact that they've cleaned up the welcome screen. I love the look and feel of it. I really like the icon set and just the way it feels, and turning off compositing in VirtualBox made a big difference to how snappy it felt to me. So that was great. And it didn't feel overwhelming. It's still got lots of GUI tools, but they don't seem as in your face somehow, because rather than them all being there on the welcome screen on umpteen tabs, you can still access them, but you have to click through to various icons to get to them. And it looks less like something that's trying to be a mobile phone screen. So I'm quite impressed with it. On the downside, yes, the welcome, the setup wizard, if you like, didn't work for me. But that's an Arch thing more than anything else. It was because there's so many updates. I think you have to be prepared to manage Arch on the command line to get the most out of it after you've just installed it, especially if you've not done an online install, so you don't have the latest packages there. But yeah, wow. Would I use it? Well, I said a definite no last time. I think I might this time. I might use it. If only to start with it as a base that comes with all of those beautiful icon sets and so on. I'm not going to run out and use it, but I wouldn't be hesitant in recommending it to an Arch user. Like any Arch system, I'd be a little bit worried about passing it straight on to someone brand new to Linux. But then again, it is really easy to configure. But would a new Linux user be able to cope with the setup wizard failing? I think not. Now, that's not a huge issue once you're used to Arch, but it's just one of those things. But overall, wow, I think the developers have done some great work. It's obviously in continuous development. It's getting a lot of love out there, and from what I can see, it's starting to really deserve it, to my mind. Okay, guys, look, that's it for today. I hope you've had a great week. I hope you have a good weekend. I'll see you next week. The weather has turned here. It's pouring with rain. It's windy, and we've got snow forecast for all of next week. So we've got that to look forward to. My workload, strangely enough, given that we've still got this thing out there, seems to be getting more and more at the moment. So I'm not getting a huge amount of time to look at stuff. In fact, I know on my last live stream, I said I would maybe look at doing Gen 2. I'm just not going to have the time. And I've been thinking about this. Do I really want to do that? I did say I was going to treat this more as a hobby than anything else, and I don't think I really want to do it. So unless I've got lots of spare time at some point, I'm just going to put that off. It's not something I'd look forward to. But anyway, guys, come and join me on my Facebook group. Come and join me on Library. And I'm just bringing over the screen with my Patreons on. We've had another new member, Skipper. So welcome, mate, and thanks for the support. If I could just thank them all in turn: Robert, Gary, Corbinian, Aristoteles, Stormpick, Stephen, Mike, David, Richard, Ty, Philip, Forrest, Patrick, Glenn, Magnus, and Skipper. Thanks very much, the last three particularly, for joining. And guys, if you'd like to support me, I'm still in two minds about Patreon, but you can find me on patreon.com/OldTechBloke. Right, guys, see you next week.